So in this video, we're going to look at some of the financial statement ratios. Now the four categories, and we'll go through them on each of the pages we have here. Is first, liquidity ratio is what you're seeing here, an example of it. Then activity ratios, leverage ratios, and profitability ratios. So let's look at liquidity ratios here. What liquidity ratios help you determine is how easily can you take your assets and turn them into cash so you can meet your short-term bills or your liabilities. So if we look at our example here, it's current assets, let's say 100,000 minus 10,000. And the reason we're taking out inventory is because typically, without really sacrificing the price on it, you don't typically turn over inventory quickly. So 100,000 minus 10,000, which leaves you with 90,000 current assets, divided by current liabilities of 30,000. So when we divide 90 by 30,000, we get 3. And what that means is you've got $3 of assets for $1 of bills that you've got. So stands out, obviously, you would like to have more assets than liabilities. So anything greater than 1 is good. The bigger the number, the better. The second one is activity ratios. We're going to look at turns here, inventory turns. It's how well you use assets. Now you see I've got 2 of them here with a little star on the right side. So this is the one that you see in books occasionally where they look at sales divided by average inventory. So they look at it from what did you sell and how much was that inventory. So if it's $1 million and you've got 200,000 worth of inventory, then you've got inventory turns of 5 at retail, which means you're going to turn over 5 sets of these $200,000 of inventory, turn it over 5 times, sell it 5 times, get the $1 million. It's also 5 times a year, so whatever 365 days divided by 5 is, that will tell you how many days worth of inventory you have on average. More common, however, in a lot of the textbooks and materials out there is on the right side here, which looks at the cost of goods sold divided by the average inventory at cost. So you don't run into the issue like you do on the left side with sales and markups and markdowns and profit margins affecting it. So for the same 200,000 of inventory, the cost of goods sold for that $1 million would have been 600,000. So we'd actually have, turned over inventory 3 times a year. Difference being, the profit margin or the markup. So, it gets a little challenging on the left side. Typically, I would say, strictly my opinion, from a test-wise standpoint, I would bet the probability is going to be more on the right side formula than the left, but, of course, you have to be prepared for your exams. Third one looks at leverage ratios. How much debt is being used to pay for or finance the business? So we look at your current liabilities, let's say 200,000, and the business is worth 600,000. Then we get 0.33, 33%. So that's saying of all the equity you have, 33% of it is tied up in liabilities that you owe for on a short-term basis. Now again, is 33% good or bad? Depends on industry, what bank requirements you might have on any loans, etc. But what stands out for sure is the bigger this top number is, your current liabilities, compared to your equity, the less freedom you have to do things because your current bills or your current liabilities are taking up a lot of what you own. Fourth one, profitability ratios. Return on investment or return on something. So it gives you a chance to look at, are you making enough? So if our sales were $1 million, let's say, and our profit on those $1 million is $300,000, then of course our net profit margin is 0.3 or 30%. Now again, is that good or bad? Depends on bank requirements, stockholder requirements, industry comparison, things like that. So there's really no context to know if 30% is good enough. You could argue, perhaps, I suppose, that number better be big enough to keep the shareholders interested and happy as well as the owners, and probably big enough to be able to reinvest in your people and the business to grow at the same time as well. So that's the 4 four ratios or four categories that we have out there: liquidity, activity, leverage, and profitability.